Well, hello, everyone, wherever you are around the globe. Welcome to Unheard Stories. I am Lubna Hassania, and I come to you from beautiful Southern California. Today, we will be discussing the challenges facing the future of food security and the necessary changes that will help us meet the needs of the 12 billion people who will inhabit our planet by the year 2050. Our guest is Dr. Mazen Rizk, founder and CEO of Mushlabs. He's joining us all the way from Germany and will share with us his unique and strategic mission to produce an alternative product to meat-based proteins. I would like to start by welcoming the dignitaries sitting on the call with us. We have His Excellency Ambassador Gabriel Isa. We have His Excellency Jean Macaron, Councillor Mirna Khawli, former Consul General to LA. We also have the Honorable Judge Tony Rafael and Princess Hayat Arslan. Thank you all for caring and daring to join us today. It really takes an open mind and some foresight to realize that change in the way we live, especially the way we eat, is necessary. Nature has given us an abundance, so let's respect it and protect it. Nature is life. It is the food we eat, the water we drink, and the air we breathe. Connecting with it is connecting with our humanity. There is a delicate balance inherent to nature, a balance that can only be explained by the interconnectedness of all living things. Even trees connect with each other. They share nutrients and resources and exchange information. And the way they do it is through a vast underground network of thin filaments called mycelia that manage to connect an estimated 90% of all land plants, making them behave as a single organism. Mycelium is the vegetative part of a fungus whose fruits we are familiar with. We call them mushrooms. Mycelium is proving to be the ultimate green material. Among the many things it can be used for is the production of plant-based meats. Mushlabs is one of the first biotech companies in the world that uses byproducts to ferment edible mushroom mycelia. The company is based in Hamburg, Germany, and was founded in 2018 by current CEO, Dr. Mazen Rizk. Dr. Rizk will share with us how his company is turning fantasy into reality as it aims to feed the world despite all the challenges that face the food industry today. So let's get started. Hello, Dr. Rizk. Welcome to Unheard Stories.
Good evening, Lubna. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thanks for having me, and it's a pleasure to talk today with such esteemed people on the call.
Yes, well, thank you for joining us all the way from Germany. Now, tell me, you were born and raised in Lebanon. How did you end up in Germany?
I was born and raised in Byblos in Lebanon, a city that has had so far a lot of influence on me and my thought process. My father studied medicine in Germany, and as we grew up in Lebanon, we always had an intimate relationship to Germany. Mm-hmm. That was not planned that I move here, but I was able to get a PhD position in Hamburg. That was also something that was very exciting for me to follow. And I decided to move here. Luckily enough, both my brothers also live in Berlin. So we were able to create a small Rizk family at the moment in Germany. And I moved here 12 years ago today. Moved to do my PhD in 2010 in renewable energy, focusing mainly on biofuels and bioethanol production from bacteria. And this has been a pathway to be able to found Mushlabs, really to get all of these insights into what is happening around us in the environment and what are the biotechnological tools, I would say, that can help you fix it.
Yes. And somehow, right after you graduated with your PhD, you found yourself doing some social work.
Exactly. So I moved to Germany with a few words of German under my belt. Was still back then thinking of going back to Lebanon after finishing my PhD. But the work that I did really opened a lot of horizons and thoughts in my head into what can you do. It was not very easy after my PhD to find a job in Germany, especially also coming from Lebanon. That was at the rise of the refugee crisis, I would say, coming from Syria to Germany. So I decided to work with a few schools here that were offering shelter for students, help them integrate as quickly as possible, and help their parents integrate with how the system was working. And that was a year that was probably one of the most influential years of my life, I would say, to really see how just with the power of language, you can help make people's lives a little bit more livable. So yeah.
Yes, and you always say what drives you, and I'm quoting you, is doing something good for the world. And this is one of the good things you're doing for the world.
Thank you.
Dr. Rizk, world hunger reached its highest level this year, 2022. Now, aside from the impact of COVID, what are the challenges of feeding the world today? And what are the consequences of failing to meet these challenges?
That's a very big question, and I'll try to be as precise as I can. So, indeed, world hunger right now has reached really its limits. There are a few present problems and a few very bigger future problems that we need to think of. It is estimated that by 2050 there will be 10 billion people on Earth. But the current food systems will not be able to accommodate for so many people. So obviously, a lot of us and a lot of people in the food industry are looking for ways to find solutions early on for that. However, as we stand right now, there is almost 1 billion people who do not have access to affordable, healthy, sustainable food. And this is going to become a huge problem. Now, the main cause is the fact that the food system has been working how it's been working for the last 100 years. It has not been innovative enough, or there have not been enough innovative solutions to fix that. The food industry on its own accounts for around 25% of greenhouse gas emissions. That is an astounding number, because that's even more than the whole transportation system combined. And as such, we have really looked into how can we solve this, not only for the future when we think of climate change, but how can we look at a food system that creates at the moment almost 1/3 of food being produced goes to waste. How can we think about circularity? How can we reinvent ways of producing food more efficiently at a price parity, but also more sustainably? And this is going to be a fight that we need to fight until 2050. If we want to be able to create environmental and sustainable actions today.
You talked about the greenhouse gases. Well, 37% of human-related methane production is due to livestock. And your method with what you're doing today will circumvent that. We are connected to food on so many levels, Dr. Rizk. Aside from survival and health reasons of why we eat certain foods, there are also cultural and emotional and economic ties that connect us to certain food. Do you think the world is ready to explore meat alternatives? You're traveling the world now. What are you sensing?
I do believe, and I do think that the world is ready. Each one has their different opinion to why they would want to change diets. I think at this point, it is also important to say that as a company, Mushlabs, we are not trying to point fingers and tell people you need to completely eradicate meat from your plates. We're just trying to be a bit more cautious on how much meat we need to eat, and how can we find alternatives that cover the rest of the week if you want to eat something that is healthy. But the main drivers are always going to be people are willing to try something if it tastes good. In different parts of the world, people are willing to try something if they know that it is sustainable enough. And there we can go into details later about the sustainability of our technology. And a lot of people are aware that there needs to be a change. They just want it to be a healthy alternative. The plant-based industry as such today does not offer the most healthiest, I would say, replacements. And therefore, the innovation over the last 2 to 3 years is more driven towards how can we create foods that are tasty, sustainable, but also presented in a healthier fashion than what exists on the market. If you look at Asia, Asia is driven by tofu, by soy production and soy consumption. So there it comes very seamlessly to be able to adapt and adopt such behaviors. Yes. It is more, I would say, Europe and the US where we are now pushing to create that change, and more countries that are becoming more developed that want to buy meat because they associate meat with a social standard, and we need to show them that actually there are alternatives to that.
Mm-hmm. And the willingness of the EU countries and Europe has been good to come to your help and come to your support.
The willingness of the EU countries has been good. I would say there are things where we can be way better. Mm-hmm. It is driven by sustainability, and I think maybe to mention as well, we got a huge funding directly from the European Union of almost 17 million euros because they realize at this point of time that we have a lot of global challenges. We need to support European tech, and the European Union is putting more money to support that. Where we see a bit of challenges where we're trying to find solutions quickly is the regulatory frameworks and how we are able to speed regulations up. And there, the US is a bit more, a lot more, I would say, not a bit more, a lot more open and receptive to such change.
Yeah. Well, once everyone realizes that food security is directly linked to the local economies and global economy, right, of the world, and it's something we need to address. Now, back in July, California passed Budget Act 2022. It included for the first time ever funds toward R&D, research and development, for sustainable alternatives to meat or animal-based products. We are thankful for that. Dr. Rizk, you founded your company, Mushlabs, to produce meat alternatives. What are your vision and your mission with Mushlabs?
We started Mushlabs to produce meat alternatives, but I think what we want to do, we're on a mission to rethink how food should be produced and not only how food should be consumed. We see biotech as a huge tool that it can allow us to sustainably usher in the next generation of sustainable foods. Our vision is to be able to feed people no matter where they are, whether poor or rich, whether in conflict or at peace. And in any geography. This is our vision, to be able to feed a growing population with sustainable and healthy foods. Our mission today is to rethink the production and rethink the consumption.
Mm-hmm. That's a great one. Now, your product is based on mycelia, yes, which is the main body of the fungus that bears mushrooms that we love so much. What are the characteristics, chemical and physical, of mycelia that allow you to carry out your mission? What do they have to offer?
And that's really amazing, because I am a microbiologist at heart. So I studied microbiology all my life, was not did not do any research in the beginning on mushrooms, but during my work on yeasts and understanding how you can put yeast and use yeast extracts in the food industry, how you can use yeast extracts for antibiotic replacement, I stumbled upon the power of mushroom, and that made me quit my job and found Mushlabs. What is very amazing about mushrooms is, from a nutritional profile, a lot of people call them superfoods because they give you very high protein, very high in quality. They give you fibers, some of which are also prebiotics. But a lot of mushrooms also give you nutrition in the terms of vitamins and minerals. We have certain mushrooms that can have more potassium than bananas in 100 grams. So from a nutritional aspect, there is a very, very nice thing that you could do there. the nice thing about mushrooms from an experience perspective is you get a very powerful umami taste. And this taste is more of a savory taste that goes in the direction of meat or cheese. It has a very exquisite texture that allows you to recreate certain foods that we know. And that is very important when we are rethinking food, to still give the taste and the texture, which is very natural and coming from within. From a scientific perspective, mushrooms are probably the smartest organisms, at least today for me, in the world. What happens usually, mushrooms fit into their own kingdom. They're not plants, they're not animals. They're closer to animals than plants are. And as such, they do not know how to grow their own food. So they cannot go through photosynthesis and grow their own food. What they've developed is a way to, through the roots of the mushrooms, to go through the soil, break down any material that is there. That could be wood, that could be dead leaves, dead animals, break it, eat, and grow. And as such, it becomes very interesting to see a process that is happening in nature and how you can repurpose it, put it in the lab, mimic the same conditions, and as such, bring more circularity into production. So how we take that amazing feature is by focusing on giving the mushrooms food which is leftovers from the food industry to grow on and to thrive. And that allows us, again, through the mission, to rethink production through biotech. How can we be more circular in our production? And how can we be more efficient through biotech in our production? And that's all thanks, obviously, to the power of mushrooms, I would say.
And they are adaptable, right? As you raise them and grow them. They are adaptable, right? You can change their medium, and then they'll adapt to that. And they don't have much byproducts, do they?
Exactly. So they're very highly adaptable. We've seen ways in the lab where we would be able to change the color to give you a specific color without having to add coloring additives, where you can focus also on the taste by understanding what conditions do I put for the mushroom or the roots to grow in, and then how fast can I have this happen. So this is obviously a very exciting aspect, because it allows us to cut down the amount of ingredients that we would add to a certain product by focusing naturally on what mushrooms can give us. This has ushered in a lot of patents our way, I would say, and a lot of potential to recreate foods in a very unprocessed, very natural way.
That's nice. And they contain fibers. You know, they have beta-glucans and chitin in them. And those are prebiotic fibers that are good for gut health, right?
Absolutely. And I did a lot of work before starting Mushlabs focusing on prebiotics in animal feed. How can you replace antibiotics by putting prebiotics into the feed? And that was, for me, the passion to really rethink how you could do stuff with mushrooms, because of that power of fibers and prebiotics. This is something we cannot claim in Europe. It's a bit different than the US. We would need a lot more clinical trials. However, if you look at the European population, we eat more protein than we need to on average. We eat less fibers than we need to on average. And this allows us, through mushrooms, to have a double-edged sword where we can focus on alternative proteins, but at the same time usher in fibers and prebiotics, which I think will be a huge problem in the next 2 to 5 years, through one solution, which is Mushlabs.
Yes. Good. And how are they stable thermally? Are they stable at high heat?
They are at the moment stable. So we have a normal temperature in which we grow them. We try as much as we can not to take them through high heat and high processes to not nature any protein. But it will be something that we will need to look into a bit more carefully as we prepare our go-to-market, to understand the protein, the denaturation of any of the protein. As we stand right now, we're able just to quickly steam things, and then we're good. So we do not need to pass them through high mechanical temperatures to denature and restructure protein. And that's a very important feature as well.
And the proteins they contain have all 9 essential amino acids in them, don't they?
Exactly. So part of coming from the science background was also to say that we need to also discuss what is relevant in food, because just saying protein is not enough. So how do we focus on the quality? And mushrooms give you all essential amino acids, and as such, it allows you to increase the quality of protein that you eat or that you take on a normal diet. We look into that very, very rigorously. We have different mushrooms, so we understand which one can have different levels of amino acids, which ones are necessary even for taste. So when someone talks about umami, we're always thinking about an amino acid which is called glutamate that can give you that taste. So we are able to understand that as well, to give you, again, a flavor that is very natural without having to add 10 or 15 ingredients of barbecue and extracts to get the savory, meaty taste into your palate.
So the least processing possible, right? What
so far, no processing at all. And I hope we can say like that. That's the focus,
Yeah. What % in dry weight is protein in your ingredient? Do you have
so with our main ingredient right now, we're looking at around 30 to 40%, but we have seen up to 55% protein, depending on the mushroom that we use.
Which is very equivalent to a grilled piece of steak, isn't it?
Very equivalent. Obviously, it depends on the final recipe and how much of the final recipe is mycelium. But we look usually at comparable levels of protein to meat. Exactly.
How did you pick your mycelium, your species in particular? I mean, we know there are 14,000 species of mushroom and mycelium that we humans have isolated and characterized. How do you go by pointing at the right one?
So the kingdom actually itself is 6 times bigger than the plant kingdom, the fungal kingdom, which is both scary and amazing because it has not been untapped. And you can imagine the moment you have the tools to tap into this, the amount of information and developments and innovation that we can create. For the first mushroom, I specifically focused on the taste. So I did not have money to go and do genomic sequences or to do a lot of research. So it was mainly online, trying to understand which mushroom gives me this glutamate at high value, because I decided from day one that it is going to be driven by taste and people want to eat something that is natural. So I need to find the driver, which is the taste. And I chose the mushroom based on that.
Okay. And if we are to claim your product is different from what's out there today in the market, as far as plant-based protein, how would you differentiate your product?
So we would look at 3 things. I would say everyone is claiming that they have a very good taste. So we cannot differentiate there by just saying we have a better taste. Where we always win, and that's based on the investor discussions and the commercial discussions that we've been having, is we offer a very natural taste coming from the mushroom within. The clean label is something very important. So if I compare it without naming names to the biggest meat or plant-based products in the US, for example, our meatball has 3 ingredients. An American meatball would have something between 20 to 25 ingredients. So we win there by landmarks, I would say. And then the third thing, which is very important because we want to bring back the emotionality into food, is how it cooks is very natural. So if you look at the plant-based industry right now, you get a burger patty that is injected with beetroot juice. It's red, you put it on a pan for 2 minutes, it becomes black. And through mushrooms, what we've been able to do is create this browning and sizzling, which is very, very natural. This is mainly this Maillard reaction that comes also from the mycelium. And as such, we usher in, again, something new. What retailers tell us is this is cooking as if it's something we already know. So the levels and the barriers to entry for a consumer to understand and adopt such a product are low, because they will cook it and they will see that it's something that they've handled in the past without having handled it, actually.
And the prebiotic fiber isn't found in other products, is it? I mean, it's not in soy-based products, is it? I don't think.
Not all, not all. I think if we want to go to the nutritional profile, we offer the protein, we offer the fibers, we have less fat because the juiciness mycelium holds water, so the juiciness is coming from within. And we can have really a lot less fat percentages than plant-based, driven obviously by the clean ingredient list as well. So at such, we're also offering a healthy alternative to plant-based products.
Yes, and mushrooms by themselves are known to have a higher nucleic acid profile than other veggies. So you have that there also as a plus, right?
Exactly.
That's all good information. Thank you. How do you cultivate mycelium, Dr. Rizk? You say your process is, quote, unique and highly efficient and produces an ideal product. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely, and I'll try to make it as easy as possible. So you can think about what happens in nature, which is mycelium eats anything around it and grows at a certain point of time. There's temperature that changes outside or conditions in the environment. That's an alarm for the mushroom to grow its fruiting body that we see usually in the forest. We just focus on the roots and the mycelium. And we're able to take a sample of that, put it in a tank, something similar to beer. So anyone who has seen a beer tank or beer industry it directly resembles it. So it's put vertically, it's a steel tank. We add the mycelium, we add water, and then we add leftovers from the food industry. For example, coffee, when we do an espresso, there's the coffee waste that we throw out. Coffee waste still holds around 60% of the nutrients that are in the bean, but we usually just throw it. We're able, through our technology, and we've done patents on that as well, to take that leftover, put it in the tank, and let the mushrooms grow on it. And that's a very simple process where we put them all in a steel tank. It's under very closed conditions, so you do not have any pressure of having contamination because it's all sterilized. We give them the right conditions so we can be very effective. And we can do that at the moment in around 3 to 4 days. So every 3 to 4 days, we grow mycelium and we harvest mycelium. And that could be a few tons. So we're talking about 20 to 30 tons per cycle at industrial scale. So if we, that is mainly the process. We harvest the mycelium becomes the main ingredient with which we create the food products. And as such, we've been able with different mushrooms to do meat alternatives. We've been able to do chicken, fish, dairy, even desserts by understanding the mushroom and what conditions we can give it to grow.
And when you take it, you turn it into powder, or what? How does it look like? What's your basic ingredient?
So we take it, it's still in a wet form, and we're able directly to use that wet form to also save energy that is usually needed for drying. The wet form allows us to hold the water and allows us to create a form and the texture that we would want to have. The very exciting thing, maybe just to point to that as well, is when we say biotech and rethinking production, this system is very efficient, is very scalable, and we've proven the scalability this year. We can today produce per year around 72 million meatballs if we have one tank running across the year. Wow. 72 million meatballs can feed the Lebanese population around 18 times over.
Yes.
One fermenter. Exactly. From the sustainability perspective, we use 3% of the water that is needed to grow cows. We use, with one fermenter, we can replace around...
Barely any land is needed, right?
Barely any land. We can replace 7,000 cows a year from one fermenter. And because it is a steel tank and installed vertically, we can put it anywhere in the world. Yes. So if we have a steel tank in Germany that is right now processing food, we can already have another one in Lebanon, we can have one in Singapore, and they're all growing simultaneously. The exciting thing is because we understand mushrooms, because we know what are the attributes that we can create, we do not want to do a burger patty in Lebanon and a burger patty in Singapore, but rather say we'll do a sausage in Germany with the cleanest label possible, but we'll use another mushroom and another technique to be able to grow something that resembles kibbeh in Lebanon, because that's what probably people would like to eat, and then do fish balls in Singapore. And that's all driven by mycelium. And this does not exist at the moment with plant-based products.
Yes, yes, yes. And when you ferment mycelia, what you're harvesting is almost pure product, right?
It's pure product. We've even done a product which was 100% out of this mycelium.
Yes, and you can optimize it with temperature, with your pH, right? And probably the substrate. Have you seen a difference in the texture or taste when you change substrate? Yes.
So if we change the conditions, we give them something different to eat. We can look at different colors. We can look at different tastes sometimes and different textures. And this is very exciting because it sounds a bit complicated, but we've hired amazing also data scientists, amazing engineers in the team who really just focus on understanding what are these conditions and what are the results that I get. And the focus then is creating this amount of versatility where I can give you the taste, I can give you the flavor, the texture, the format, even the color, all from within by understanding which mushroom and which waste do I give it to grow.
And if you let it grow longer than you said there's a period you already managed to optimize, will you change the texture by doing that? Will
a bit,
change? Yeah.
Even the taste as well.
Go ahead.
No, sorry.
No, I was going to ask, how difficult is it to get a homogeneous product?
It isn't easy. It is rather difficult because you need to understand whatever you're producing at a 10-liter scale needs to be then scaled up to 1,000-liter scale, and then 5,000, 50,000 to get to 100,000 scale. But this is something from day one we understood. The challenge here is how can we produce, how can we use the technology to produce at scale, and how can we be efficient? And I hired people around me that effectively know that. One of my co-founders had just worked on this over the last 4 or 5 years before joining Mushlabs, understanding fermentations. And as we stand, we have reached industrial, so 100,000 liter, and we've seen that it's been repetitive or reproducible, but it's not easy because conditions can change. How the mycelium behaves can change, what you give it, and the temperature and conditions, all of these can lead to changes. But this is again where we as scientists spend a lot of time in the beginning trying to understand that.
Yes, and you talked about circularity and sustainability. You're relying on side streams and on food leftovers, so you're saving those and you're turning them into something usable.
Absolutely, and I can give an example because we have a partnership that we closed this year with one of the biggest beer brewers in Germany. They have beer waste that usually they give to animal feed or it goes into biogas production. We are able to take that waste, repurpose it into our tanks, and then have the cells grow on it. The exciting thing is with 5 kilograms of that waste, you can usually feed cows and you produce around 1 kilogram of beef. We can produce with 5 kilograms around 48 kilograms of mycelium today. And if you look a little bit into this topic, there's around 2 million tons of beer waste in Germany per year. And if we are able to repurpose 10% of that only, we are able to create enough food for a country like Ethiopia. So the message becomes not only does Europe need to eat healthier, but also if we rethink production, we can create food where actually food is needed. And I'm talking about countries like Lebanon. I'm talking about countries that are underdeveloped at the moment that need access to food. You can produce that in a very, very simple and efficient way.
Yes, and your multi-local approach, right, is based on the fact that you can use side streams from any country, right? They're local side streams, and you can put the fermenter there, right? and it's not going to be dependent on the climate, on the weather, you know,
Not at all.
too much cold. That's not going to matter. And you don't
Not
need
at
the
all.
soil and little bit of water, and you have it. You have your product that is
You still have a product that is natural, a
Yes.
product that is mushroom based, so it's not science fiction as well. We're
Yes.
not telling people you should eat bacteria or you should eat insects. It's still a mushroom. Everyone knows mushrooms and have been around eating mushrooms at some point in their lives. Whether you hate it or you like it is secondary to the fact that you know it and you know that it exists in the food system. But rightfully so, and as you said, Lubna, we're able to use it with a lot of different side streams. So we've even tested something in Lebanon that we had promising results on, to say that there's a side stream or there's a leftover from the industry in Lebanon that we can repurpose to grow food in Lebanon. And this multi-local approach is unaffected by floods, by wars, by temperature conditions, or climate change. At the same time, you do not need to distribute across continents anymore. That is a longer vision, obviously, but in 5 years, if we have productions in the Middle East, we can serve the Middle East on its own as an entity. If we have productions in Germany, we can do that here without having to distribute and go into hassles of supply chain.
So this leads to a decentralized food system, right? It will
Absolutely.
It will make it more affordable, right?
It will make it more affordable. It will make it more readily available and fresher even.
Yes.
So the products will be still more fresh, because right now we do not even add preservatives to the products. And if we can create them on a daily or a weekly basis, we can still have fresh produce that we can offer to consumers.
It's all a genius idea. Congratulations. Well, you talked about no artificial flavors needed, right? And no processing. I'm guessing that there's no genetic engineering at all, right? Is there genetic engineering?
Having worked in genetic engineering, I think there's a lot of opportunities there. But at least with our products, there is no genetic modification. Maybe in the US, this is something that is not frowned upon as much as Europe. So we also want to follow what consumers here are looking for, and they try to usually avoid genetic modification. So as of today, there are no genetic modifications in the mushrooms.
Good. And you're not claiming yet that your product is vegan. Can you tell me why?
So we're not claiming that our product is vegan because we do not want to have one line of vegan products only. We want to offer vegetarian products and vegan products because we talk a lot to consumers, and the biggest size of consumers today is not the vegans, it's not the vegetarians, it's what we call flexitarians. So these are people who want to be flexible in their foods and choices of what they eat. So they want to eat meat because they enjoy it, but they also want to watch out from a health perspective or sustainable perspective. And these are people that do not have a problem with vegetarian products, or maybe sometimes even prefer that. So we want to be as inclusive as possible in our approach to make sure that everyone would have something that they would be able to eat coming from Mushlabs.
Yes. Are you at all looking at quote unquote beefing up meat products with it? Like use it to mix it probably with ground beef to lower the percentage of meat? No? Okay.
We've had a few offers that came our way, or people asking us if we can do that. At the moment, we're not looking to do that because we see that people want to enjoy their steak on a weekend or probably once a month. We're trying to tell them, we will give you an alternative that you can eat during the week. Enjoy your meat when you want to enjoy your meat, but look at healthier alternatives when you want to do that. So we see that even with the taste, we would not need to beef it up as such. And therefore, now this is not something we're focusing on.
Okay. When will your final product be ready?
So we have a few final products that are ready. Luckily enough, we just heard today, or actually this week, not today, that we will have the chance to start offering some products in the US early next year in restaurants. So we will be faster in the US than in Europe. And as such, I'm also planning a few travels to the West Coast to talk to a few restaurants that we want to potentially work with in the near future. We will be able afterwards to offer it across a few regions in Asia, where I will be over the next couple of weeks. And then after that, we will start serving it in Europe.
Okay. Dr. Rizk, there are probably a couple of companies, I don't know, probably more, you know better, doing kind of similar work to yours. How do you differentiate yourself from them? What's in your company that is different?
So this is a very good question. And there, I think we need to look at it, again, multifaceted. So from a technology perspective, we are one of the few, if not the only one in Europe at the moment that is working with mushroom mycelium. Again, the kingdom of fungi is huge, but you have a lot of soil fungus that, or mold per se, that never becomes a mushroom. The biggest companies that are doing what we're doing are working with that soil kind of mold. Okay. We chose to work with edible mushrooms because the consumer also wants something that is more transparent and wants more honest communication with them. What that also helps us do is, compared to the mold, our mushrooms have a higher natural umami taste. So we do not need to add another 5 or 6, 7 ingredients for the taste. So that allows us from a product perspective to be very, very clean and unprocessed. The other thing is that we are very, very pushy on the fact that we want to use leftovers from the industry. And this is not something the others are so advanced at what doing as we are. The third thing is we have a very asset-light model and a very versatile model, meaning we do not focus only on one mushroom. We focus on several mushrooms to create several products. So instead of just saying, as an example, I have soy protein, and from that, I'm going to do meat, chicken, and then I'm going to do dairy spreads and then milk. We understand at the base what each mushroom can give me in terms of characteristics. We build a lot of data collections around that and then offer the product. This is not something anyone else is doing. And the other thing is, with our asset-light model, we do not need to spend $50 million to build a facility to produce. What we can do is go to the beer company, plug our technology there. So we go with our black box, tell them, we're going to take your waste. We're going to use one of the tanks that you use for beer, and voila, we can produce. We can do that with a lot of different industries. And as such, we would not need to be very CapEx heavy to build facilities and own land. And that is very important because at the current inflations and with the market today, this is a lot of money to spend. With supply chain, this takes you 2 to 3 years to get the steel to build. We've developed the technology in a different way to allow us to be as asset-light and as decentralized from day one as possible.
And that will reflect on the price of your product and make it more affordable.
Absolutely. So that allows us to create revenues faster. That allows us to be decentralized faster and have a very decent profitability over the next 5 years.
Well, Dr. Rizk, what is the one lesson you learned growing up in Lebanon that has helped you a lot, has given you an edge?
I think we talked about this, and I need to tell a story there. So I was in a car, lucky enough to be on a drive last year with one of the world champions in boxing called Vladimir Klitschko, which is now in Ukraine with the whole war between Russia and Ukraine. He's back there to defend his country. And we were in the car, and he was telling me about how he grew up in Ukraine, his father being in the military and him being the boxing heavyweight champion. And when he asked me, what do you think differentiates you as a person? I told him what I learned from Lebanon, which is willpower. And I think coming to Europe, it was probably something that I took for granted, but coming to Europe, I realized what willpower means. We are sometimes at a disadvantage here, whether it's how we grew up, where we grew up, the languages, and you always need to push and break barriers. And it's only willpower that I think I brought with me from Lebanon that allowed me to do that. And he was also very happy about that answer.
Yes, it is the residual silent power that drives you. Absolutely. Dr. Rizk, what would you like to see accomplished by the end of this year? You don't have much left, 1 month or 2 months. What do you want to accomplish by end of 2022? And what do you forecast for 2023?
2022 has been a very, very interesting year. It has not been an easy year with what's happening in the market, obviously, and us being a startup that needs to be dynamic and growing. I think we have accomplished way more than we thought we would be able to do in 2022. We have scaled up the technology. We have gotten regulations to start selling in a few different countries. We have grown our team from 25 people to now 60 people in Germany. And over the next 2 months, I think we are going to get a few more commercial agreements with partners to sell our products in different geographies in the world. And we are hopefully we are a finalist in the German Sustainability Award. So hopefully, if we can win that in December, that would be very, very exciting. But 2023 is all going to be about marketing and having fun.
Yes.
Having people try our products, starting positioning our products against the existing market, and doubling the team basically in size. So there is a lot to look out for in 2023, mainly driven by starting to put our products on the market. The exciting thing is that as we stand right now, we have from 60 people, almost 23 different nationalities in the team. And that is exciting and challenging at the same time, because you need to understand so many different mindsets, people who are engineers and people who are food scientists. But at the same time, what that opens is the fact that you can rethink food, because food is not trickling down from the US, which is nuggets and a burger patty, in plant-based at least. We want to be able to have a dialogue around what is food really, what does it mean to different parts of the world. My parents were visiting in the summer, and my mom ended up sitting in our kitchen with a Michelin star chef doing the wood basha and then replacing the meatballs with our meatballs, just to see if it fits into the Lebanese way of yes. eating. And this is something that we're taking with us also for 2023, to be able to really close gaps, be inclusive in a world where everything today is black and white.
Yes.
Bring people around the table and celebrate food. And no one knows that more than Lebanese people. So I try to bring this energy, obviously, to the company on a daily basis, to tell them food is celebration. Yes. And we want to be able to stand for that as well as a company.
Yes. Well, that was an amazing discussion. Thank you so much for taking my questions and for allowing us to explore something new, right? Basically giving us a taste of the future and what it means to be mindful of life and our planet. Dr. Rizk, can we take some questions from the audience?
Sure. And thanks a lot, Lubna, for having me. And thanks a lot for giving me the platform to talk about Mushlabs.
Yes. Well, we have, can you unmute me? Of course we can. Oh, that's you. Okay, so we have one from Rabia Sukaria is saying, bravo, so proud of your work and feeding the poor. I have been vegetarian 28 and vegan 15 years. I tried soy products. I'm so happy to hear what you said about your product. Amazing. I have a question here. Dr. Saleh Al-Souli would like to ask you a question. He's a former director at the International Monetary Fund. Dr. Al-Souli, you can unmute yourself. Hello.
Good morning, Lubna.
Good morning to you.
I want first of all to say how pleased I was to hear Dr. Rizk. He really represents the best of the Lebanese ingenuity and entrepreneurship. And it makes us all proud that he has achieved such success in Germany, particularly since my wife is German.
Yes, I was going to say.
Watching this with great interest. I have a few questions for you. If I understood correctly, the products you are producing are nutritionally equivalent to meat or to whatever product you are trying to produce. The second question I want to ask you is the issue of pricing. Are the products you are producing competitive with the alternatives that are already there? And third, I was curious, I have read that mycelium is also being used experimentally right now to produce plastic alternative packaging, which would be great for the environment. So these are the three issues I wanted to raise with you.
Thank you, Doctor, and I'll try to answer them one at a time. So, with the price question, we are able today to produce at price parity compared to plant-based products. The aim would be over the next 2 to 3 years to be able to have price competition with meat. The problem with meat is, depending on the products where they're coming from, the quality, you can have a lot of lobbying around that, and then you can bring down prices quite extensively with meat. So we need to benchmark what meat we want to replace and what meat we want to compete against. But we see that happening in the next 2 to 3 years, where we will be even price competitive with meat. The first question was on.
Yeah. The first question was whether the products you are producing, one can characterize them as being nutritionally equivalent to available products.
Absolutely. We can even consider them to be healthier than certain products, because we can remove a lot of the fat that is needed, that is usually put extra into products. If you look at plant-based products, there's sometimes chemicals that are added, and we're trying to avoid that as well. So it's not only the nutritional profile, but also the kind of ingredients. At the moment, all the ingredients that we add are natural. We have products that are 100% made out of mycelium. The product that has the most amount of ingredients added to it is 6 ingredients. And all of these ingredients are natural, something that you can already have in your kitchen. So we try to avoid any unnecessary additions there. And the third question, when it comes to mushrooms in general and mycelium, packaging is only one of them. Food is only one of them. You can think about textiles. You can think about the leather industry. There is a company, for example, in San Francisco called MycoWorks that does leather from mushrooms. So mushrooms are amazing organisms, and you can use them with so many different things when it comes to oil, when it comes to also potentially breaking down plastic, decomposing plastic through mushrooms, textile, what you mentioned with packaging. There are a lot of possibilities. And like I said, it's still being untapped. It's still now starting to be tapped. And what I would like for Mushlabs in the long term is to have all of this information in our house, that we can say we are disrupting the food industry, but there are opportunities when it comes to sustainability in a lot of different places. How can we rethink that through the mushroom kingdom? And this is something that never ceases to amaze me on a daily basis with the things that we can create there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Nsuli, for your question. Dr. Rizk, you have a question from Carol Kaukabani. She's asking, where do you see the next mushroom sustainability making a big impact besides meat? Could it be chicken or fish?
Yes, there are a few companies already doing with mushrooms, bacon, for example, or chicken. We see this as a tool, and the tool of technology that we're building to be able to create this versatility. And the versatility will allow us to unlock the whole animal-based market. And that's a $3 trillion market. This is not a small number. Compared to a lot of plant-based companies, having this technology in-house allows us to do, and what we've done already with a few Michelin star chefs, do the chicken, do the fish, we've done dessert, we've done spreads, which are dairy, and these are all coming after each other, even from our standpoint as Mushlabs.
You have another one from Rabia. She's saying, I'm an artist and an activist with a few museum exhibits happening now, but due to my being repealed by killing and world hunger, I learned a lot about nutrition and alternative foods. Of course, you should do fish and chicken. It's a must. I will be so happy to speak to you anytime. So that's Rabia Sukaria.
Would be a pleasure.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, I was amazed as I was going through the material and I was reading about Bitburger, the company you're collaborating with. I realized they're a family of 6 companies, right? And they have been, it's a family business and it's been in the family for 7 generations. Okay. Do you see your company down the road going and flourishing 5, 6, 7 generations later? And what does family mean to you?
I do not know. I know that everything happens for a reason, and I know that something has happened in the world that I'm sitting here today. But so I do not take that for granted. But I cannot foresee what will happen in the future. As long as the company serves its purpose, whoever is heading it and whatever family name is irrelevant, I would say. If I am able to, at some point in time, do something similar in Lebanon, that would be for me a huge success. But obviously now with everything happening there, the focus is to establish a name and the technology in Europe first. But family for me is the most important thing. That's what I try to build in the company as a culture as well, to discuss different people, different geographies, different nationalities. I want to have people in my company that have a chip on their shoulder and have something to prove. When all the doors have been closed, I want to have a door open for them to prove themselves. And this has been what family for me is, right? A lot of doors have been closed in my life, and it was always family that opened a lot of it back and gave me the motivation to do that. So family is I think for me everything.
Yes. Dr. Rizk, would you compare your FDA requirements versus the European ones in supporting healthy alternatives? This is from Carol. Are they
how would I compare?
easier or harder?
So
in Europe, easier or harder?
The US is easier because the US is pragmatic. And this is why a lot of innovation happens in the US. And this is why a lot of people go to the US to make something out of themselves. I think in Europe, it's a bit more bureaucratic, and it's a bit more, slowly how things move. Yes. So in the US, we have a few partners that are helping us with the FDA approvals and the self-affirmed GRAS approvals. And there we see things moving a little bit faster. The only reason why FDA would take a little bit longer right now is because of what happened during the Trump era, that a lot of things were put on hold, and now they're being overwhelmed with the amount of things at the FDA that they need to do. Europe is different. Europe is a bit slower, and Europe needs a lot more discussions and a lot more data that they need to have, and that we need to prove in order to sell the product. So we see the US actually moving faster than Europe in that sense.
Noor Bushakra is saying, will food allergies be a concern?
I think food and allergy go hand in hand. So there will be obviously concerns on allergy, but if you look at allergies from mushrooms, they're very, very, very low compared to soy, compared to almonds, compared to different nuts. But we would need to say that it's mushroom. And if people have an allergy to mushrooms, then they would need to obviously be aware of that.
Princess Hayat Arslan is asking to ask a question.
Thank you for the very, very interesting meeting. And thanks to Dr. Mazen for this kind of novelty in the whole world, and especially in the nutrition area. But I like to ask Dr. Mazen, always you and others, everybody says that if we compare our food, the beef eaters, to the Asian eating soy and I don't know what all alternatives of the beef, You say that it's much better, healthier. It should be done everywhere. All this stuff. But are there any statistics saying why it is better? Long lives, or better health, or what are the statistics that say that their food is better than ours, and what impact their food makes on human lives?
Yeah, thank you a lot, Princess, for the question. I would not want to compare the Asian food to ours. I can tell you, if we think about plant-based foods to meat foods, what the problems are. Where we are coming from is more of a sustainability perspective. That's why we do not want to kill, quote unquote, the farmers and tell them we do not want cows anymore, but rather limit the amount of meat that you eat. One is sustainability, so the amount of methane that is being produced, how much land you need to have for cows. The amount of nutrition that you get is mainly driven by protein and fat, with no fibers in meat, maybe a bit of vitamins, but not necessarily everything that you need. And this is a system that has been developed over the last 100 years, where maybe we think about a steak or a chicken breast, but if you think about a meatball, if you think about minced meat, it's usually the leftovers of the cow that gets processed into that. So from the healthiness part, also, we see that we have developed a technology that can offer a lot of more health attributes to the food that you eat compared to meat. On sustainability, we win every day of the year. We win against plant-based, and of course, by far, we are way more sustainable than meat. However, if we now start looking at the meat or the chicken, I do not want you to replace your chicken breast, because I cannot claim that the chicken breast is unhealthy. Maybe it's unsustainable, but still it is a very lean protein that you can eat. I want to focus on the unhealthy products that you eat in meat, replace these by giving you healthier products that you can eat on a daily basis. There are obviously a lot of research. There is a lot of research that has been done on carcinogenics and the effect of red meat that has on your circulation, on your blood, on your on carcinogenics that they have inside them. But that is also something where people can say with plant-based, it has not yet been proven. And the problem there is mainly the cleanliness of the products, the processing of the products. And this is where we come in with Mushlabs and say, it's a very clean, natural ingredient list, clean product, unprocessed, that we want to offer you. And we want to offer it in a form that you can replace on a daily, and not replace the healthier, lean meat that you can eat once a week, once a month, etc. I hope this answers your question. I think when it comes to Asia, it just fits into their traditions of eating soy. It fits into their traditions of eating mushrooms. So it's an easier communication for us to tell them, you know, mushrooms, they fit into your culture, into your palate, into your traditions. So we are able to take this journey with us way easier, with a lot less hurdles than someone maybe in Europe trying to explain to them what fermentation and what mycelium is. That's the only thing that I would compare to Asia at this point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Princess. And to some people, it is actually going to lead to reducing slaughterhouses around the world. And if you look at the curves, how they're going, and extrapolate 2050, we're not going to have enough food for everyone. That's very clear. I think our conversation came to an end. Dr. Rizk, is there anything else you'd like to add before we close it? What are you looking for? Are you looking for employees, investors?
So we're always looking for employees. We have a chance to create a dent in the status quo and to create a change. Maybe that is the Lebanese optimist inside me that says we're gonna revolutionize something and create a change. But I see it growing in front of my eyes on a daily basis. However, I need as many international people as I can inside my team to create a global change driven by a Lebanese sitting in Germany. So we're always looking to hiring more people, whether it's in research, engineering, food, or even marketing and business. And we are now in discussions for a new fundraising round. So we have money, like I said, from the European Union, which is around 17 million. We have a lot of investors that are interested across the US, Europe, and Asia. And we're trying now to put a round together with a few tens of millions of euros to get us to the commercial phase to start putting the products on the market. And there obviously is something that I'm happy to discuss later on in private with anyone who has connections. And as such, I will also be in LA. I hope over the next couple of months, one to have discussions with a few investors, to have discussions with a few restaurants, and watch a team called Los Angeles Lakers that has my favorite player maybe win a game this season. So I would be very happy to also meet anyone who's around the West Coast or the East Coast after this discussion when I plan my travels there.
How can they reach out to you?
So I can add my email here probably, and
box. And you have a website, right?
We have a website. I can also add it here. Maybe one last word from my side. I don't know if he's still on the call, but I would also love to thank His Excellency, Mr. Isa, for making the introduction as well.
Yes.
Because I think he met my father in Lebanon, and they discussed Mushlabs, and then he reached out to me and introduced me to you. So I also want to thank him dearly for for an amazing introduction to you.
Yes.
And thank you for an amazing discussion that we had today.
Yes, well, with people like you, Dr. Rizk, we're always unafraid of change. We're going to remain unafraid of change and courageous to explore and mindful of our planet, beloved planet. Thanks to everyone who joined us today. This event will be uploaded to my YouTube channel and shared on social media. Unheard Stories is a monthly event. It falls on the last Saturday of every month. Next month's guest is Dr. Mohammed Kubaisi, Professor of Neurology and Director of the Epilepsy Center at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. Dr. Kubaisi was featured on a National Geographic series called Breakthrough for his important work in epilepsy research and treatment. He will share with us his discoveries in the fields and will take us on a tour through the human brain, the human mind, and the consciousness. Please don't forget to register. You don't want to miss it. Thank you all for bringing us into your home and making us part of your Saturday. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye, Dr. Rizk. Thank you.
Bye.